Hello, my name is Deniz Appelbaum. I'm here today to share with you a research initiative that I undertook with my colleague Robert Niemer of Oakland University entitled Using Drones in Internal and External Audit. Basically, we're going to be automating the few remaining procedures of the audit cycle that are still manual procedures. And so basically this is going to happen because the FAA has lifted certain restrictions and improved regulations regarding the use of drones commercially and also privately. So we're seeing an expanded use of drones by real estate, agriculture, any type of land assessment projects, the film industry, delivery services like Amazon, for example. Drones are being looked at as a very capable form of automation. And so basically it's in the Gardner's trigger cycle phase of innovation. So given that we're trying to take a manual process in auditing such as inventory observation and evaluation of assets, we need to look at perhaps using a design science research initiative approach where this is an essential component of how to basically automate a manual process. So we're looking at problem identification and understanding and motivation of why we want to automate the process, define the objectives of the solution, design and develop a solution or a hardware or software implementation, demonstrate how this could work, and we also want to evaluate the solution and communicate the problem and our initiatives to interested stakeholders. However, we do have some constraints in this particular project, which is that we still have to navigate within current existing audit standards, which are quite restrictive. They demand that auditors actually physically observe inventory. They actually will corroborate inventory, reperform inventory if needed, and they also have to physically and personally inspect evaluation of assets for physical condition to make sure they agree with the economic valuation by the client or the company. So given that we're looking at those two areas of inventory and valuation primarily and observation, we realize that drones can answer everything in terms of auditing, but they can definitely assist or augment the auditor, at least for initially, as part of an assistant to the auditor in these two processes. So for example, right now auditors are required to inspect records or documents, inspect intangible assets, so that's part of physical inventory and walk through and open boxes. They're required to observe or be watching workers can do things, do control activities. The inquiry is another process, confirmation. The rest of them are all processes that are pretty automated by software or other technology tools. However, the auditor still is having to walk through the inventory warehouse and manually verify the count by the company. Furthermore, the auditor then is also having to look at assets for valuation, so whether they're in good condition, whether they agree with the economic value. And even with the cases of where we're using RFID tagging, with RFID tagging you still have to verify that the tag belongs to the item and that everything was tagged. So it's not infallible, so we still have a physical involvement by the auditor where they're climbing up ladders, they're climbing through the warehouse, they're climbing on rooftops, they're climbing up silos of oil, for example, to see what's going on. So this is a process or an area where the auditors could definitely use assistance of a drone. So we can see where drones could capture images of flow charts, they could capture images of employees doing activities, they could drones could observe inventory being taken. Drones could actually take inventory themselves because they have RFID cameras. So we want to also look at seeing how they would also they could observe activities, which is a little more problematic in terms of privacy, but it could occur. Or they could also conduct inspections of items for economic value. So we looked at a working paper by Michael Alice and al. in 2008 on audit automation, and we've discovered there's a four-phase project process here, which is value, development, implementation, and management. Value is where we're identifying the drivers or the main objective and audit evidence sources in this process. Then development is like where we're looking at seeing what has to be changed with the business process, what kind of support would management have to offer to enable this process to occur, how would it be implemented, what kind of architecture would you need, the software and the systems and the environment, what kind of security process have to be in place, and also baseline monitoring so we can make sure that value is being established and achieved by this process. And so we look at the drone. For example, the drone itself is capable of flight, so it's very maneuverable, very flexible. It can go in small, little tight spaces. It can go very quickly, very slowly. It's video capable, and so it can take video cameras. Even the cheap $90 models with tiny drones can take pictures. It can store data. It can manipulate objects. In some cases, drones can deliver items. They can carry things. They can move things over. They can open boxes. Also, it can take RFID tag scanners and use infrared and audio recording. So these are all capabilities of a drone. It's basically like a small flying robot to some degree. However, though, the auditor could pilot the drone. In fact, the current technology, the regulations say that the drone has to be within sight of the pilot. So you can see the auditor may be standing at the end of the warehouse and manually piloting the drone throughout the warehouse, and that would be considered to be okay by the FAA. So how would you automate a drone with this process of value development, implementation, and management? So obviously the driver would be, we're trying to automate the remaining parts of the audit, which are still manual. Then we would develop the software, the auditor enhancement. The auditor would have to be trained how to fly a drone, for example. The staff may have to be realigned to support this activity. Then implementation would again be the architecture of the inventory process may change. The software could possibly change that's on the audit side. And then we have to be process developments. Then we'd also look in continuing management and make sure there's oversight that is being conducted thoroughly, that drones are actually being kept secure, that there's value being delivered by the drones in this particular space. Then applying our framework to the warehouse situation, where we're looking at warehouse inventories. We can see the drone adds value, efficiency, and effectiveness to the audit procedure. It provides evidence of the inventory, and it's very valuable. And actually, in many cases, the RFID scanning is occurring more quickly, so there's time savings. Then we're looking at what management has done to achieve the objectives of the audit, for example, and whether the auditor actually achieved greater observations and speed in the audit. And then implementation, like what kind of architecture was involved with implementing the software, what kind of changes had to occur within the software to make this happen. And then we also look at management, continuing oversight and assurance. So these are all scopes and that we're developing in the framework in our paper. And basically I want to just give a high-level view of the process. Right now we're basically here where we're looking at the manual audit procedures of inventory, observation, and evaluation. These are stipulated by the standards, and for right now the standards have not changed. We can see we are using a piloted drone where we have a drone which is being in sight of the auditor at all times and being manually using a joystick or something to traffic the drone through the warehouse or through the rooftop or whatever. This drone can be used to augment, to assist the auditor as an extension of the auditor. Then possibly we might be looking at changes in regulations or procedures for the audit framework based on the results of the piloted drone study. And then possibly we may start investigating the use of bot drones. In other words, there's some activities that could be automated. So if we're doing the same warehouse inventory month after month, why can't that be automated so they go through the same pathways? And so that would therefore alleviate some of the auditor activity and involvement. They would just go and look at the video later. Then that might require some regulation and procedure changes because obviously the auditor is not there to actually verify the audit procedure. So the ideal situation is where you have a combination of piloted drones and automatic drones that are assisting with the inventory, valuation, and observation of the audit procedures. So we find that drones have some usefulness in some activities of the audit procedures, such as inventory, observation, valuation of assets, and general observations. And we also developed a framework to sort of formalize the discussion in the all paper, which was not formalized, so we feel we contribute to literature in that regard. And we also developed a warehouse drone prototype. And we should really focus more now going forward on the actual implementation of this warehouse drone and also using the drone for valuation. It's occurring quite often in the private industry, but needs to be developed in the audit assurance side. And that is the end of our quick presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.